Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a young and accomplished social entrepreneur from Chennai, Vedika Agarwal. Vedika, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Vedika is the founder and chief executive officer of Yein Udaan. She's an advisor at Educate to empower trust in rural Tamil Nadu, Teach for India Chennai, and Good Hope Trust in Sri Lanka. And she has been recognized as a global COVID 19 hero by the Commonwealth Secretariat. So, Vedika, before we come to Yen Udaan, what personal experiences first shaped your understanding of inequality and access to education?
So honestly, my eyes opened to inequality only at the age of 18. I lived a very sheltered life up until then. It was when I was in Bombay pursuing my undergrad degree that, as part of our credits program, we had to volunteer in a nonprofit of our choice. And I chose to work in a community center in a fisherman community of South Bombay. When I learned that children had childhoods and upbringings and experiences very diverse to mine.
Mhm.
So I worked with preteen girls who scaled fish at the docks all day to support their family and were not able to go to school because of this. I worked with children who came from extreme domestic abuse households. And these are the personal experiences at the age of 18 that helped me realize that the purpose
Wow.
of my life is to, help children, vulnerable children, with whatever means that I was blessed with.
Amazing, amazing. What does the name Yen Udan mean, and what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah. So when I was starting my nonprofit, I knew that I wanted to call it Udaan, because of the Hindi meaning of the word, which means flight. Um, but I also realized that working in Tamil Nadu, it may not hold a lot of contextual value.
Hmm.
So one day I randomly decided to add the Tamil word yen, which means my, before Udan.
Hmm. Hmm.
And thus the name came to be as Yen Udaan.
Hmm.
Only much later did I realize, or was I taught, that En Udan in Tamil also means with me, which is
Hmm.
how locals often pronounce the name. And I think in both languages, in all languages, it has a beautiful meaning. In Hindi, it's Ye
Absolutely.
Udaan, like this flight. The personal meaning for it, for me, of it is, the amalgamation of the two languages, which
Hmm.
also identifies with the two cultures that come into my work,
Hmm.
right? And also, then, of course, the Tamil meaning, Enudan, which means with me. Yeah.
Very interesting. What a great name. When you started Yen Udan in 2017,
Yeah.
what was the problem you felt most urgently you wanted to solve?
Yep. So by 2017, I had worked in the social sector for 2 years. So my journey started in 2015 as a teacher in a government school in Chennai. And in those 2 years working with these marginalized children, I noticed a huge gap in their safety, which was after school hours. So a lot of my students, if not all of them, came from either single parent households, or from households where their fathers struggled with alcoholism, drug violence, and that translated into domestic abuse, or from households where both parents were working. So these children essentially did not have a safe space to be at after school. They were going home to empty households or to dangerous households, which led them to petty theft because they were hungry, to
Hmm.
drug violence and alcohol abuse, to gang violence. And it is this, this gap in their safety that encouraged me to work in the after school space directly within the community that our kids come from. And I think that's the most urgent need at that time that we were trying to meet.
Very well said. And what were some of the earliest challenges that you faced to build trust within the communities that you are working with?
So personally, I think the biggest challenge was my lack of knowledge of the language. Even though I am born and brought up in Chennai, I didn't speak a word of Tamil at the time. So it was very hard for me to connect, communicate with the community. So there was a lot of resistance, of course, in terms of, what do you know about us to be here? But I think we overcame that with just persistence. Right. I would show up every day at school. I was the first one at school every day. My co-teacher started calling me the watchman after a point because I would come so early and open the school gates, right? And I would be the last person to leave, and I would never go back home. I would spend the whole day in the community doing house visits, talking to parents. And even in those house visits and talking to parents, I think another pushback I received was I was working with first generation learners, right? So their parents had never been to school before, and they didn't know that they could hold the school accountable, let alone accountable for what. So here I was, a little tornado, like going door to door, being like, you should ask the school this and you should do this. And, these are the ways in which you can improve your child's well-being. And they had gotten so used to being complacent and compliant, right? That there was a lot of resistance in terms of, I don't need to do this.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I grew up okay with my parents not having done it. Yeah, so I think a personal and a professional challenge, both. Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And tell me, Vedika, how did you design safe spaces for children, youth, and women? And why was safety central from day one?
Yeah. So again, I think safety was central because I was becoming more and more aware that our children didn't have too many spaces to call safe, right? Whether it be at home, at school, on the playground, in their community. And for me, it was just, it was interesting to hear everyone talk about how we need our kids to study and thrive when all they're in is fight or flight mode constantly. And I was like, if that's the state of your mind, like how are you absorbing anything, right? When you're worried about like how your father is going to be when you go home, if you're going to have food or water, like are you going to get enough sleep? Like, so for me, I think that safety was essential, especially at the nascent ages, when kids are seeing and doing and replicating. So from day one, we decided that before education or arts or any of those, higher needs of children, we would meet their basic need of safety, of, being able to have a space, access a space where they can express themselves without judgment, without punishment, where they can truly use their agency and their voice. And that's what I'm very proud to share that we've been able to do. And not just for the children, but now I feel that safety resonates through the community, right? We have so many moms who come to our community centers just to express themselves, because they have no safe space to do that. And they're carrying, the baggage of the world with our team and with the youth of the community as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So tell me, what misconceptions do a lot of people often have about communities living in urban slums?
Sometimes I have potential donors and partners who come into our community centers, forgetting that we are also working with human beings, right? As crass it is to say that, I have so many people sometimes talk to me like, so what do you do with these kind of children?
Wow.
And I'm just like, what kind? Like, can you explain what kind? I think that is, it's a it's a problem that we as
Yeah,
a society need to come together and change
absolutely.
the narrative towards, right?
Mm.
Because these children are born with all the potential
Absolutely.
of privileged children.
Mm.
It's just that they don't have enough avenues to access that potential and to
Mm.
exhibit that potential. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with them.
Correct. Oh, absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think we need to be very aware of that, especially when
Absolutely.
we're proposing to engage with them.
Correct. Sometimes we tend to typecast based on, our own silly mindsets, but that's what a
Yeah.
great response you've given me. Thank you. Vedika, working closely with women and youth, what patterns of resilience stand out for you?
Um, I think over the last 11 years, what I've noticed is when a youth or a woman or even a child for that matter,
Hmm.
when they overcome the barrier of fear
Hmm.
of societal, of a societal or control from their family members,
Hmm.
that I can do it attitude and that belief in self is immensely powerful. And I think that's where they draw their resilience, to take that step one by one towards
Hmm.
their goal.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that belief in self is something that I learn every day while at work.
Hmm.
Um, Once you overcome that fear, and you're there for yourself, they are really there for themselves as
Hmm.
individuals and as a community. And
Hmm.
I think they draw immense energy from that, and they're able to build the future, the life that they've hoped and dreamed of.
Hmm. Can you give me an example without giving any names of
Yes,
where
of
you've
course.
seen such amazing resilience?
Yeah. So one of our student alumni, she comes from a very, very marginalized household with a monthly income of 4,000 rupees. Her mother is the only working member of the family. She works as a housemaid. Her father struggles with alcoholism, and her brother, younger brother, has some learning disabilities,
Hmm.
right? And this child, when she came to us in grade six, 6 years ago, she was very low on self belief, right? And she had charted this path for herself, very similar to her mother's, where
Hmm.
all she wanted to do was maybe clear grade 8 or grade 10 and then start working as a maid herself.
Hmm.
Today, that same child, now a young adult,
Hmm.
works as a teacher in a CBSE school.
Oh, amazing.
Yes, in a very privileged school in
Hmm.
Chennai. She earns in 1 month what her mother earns in 6 months.
Wow.
And she has now become, a role model for the community, where she's just like, if I can do this for myself, if
Hmm.
I can dream bigger for myself
Yeah.
and I can show up for myself, so
Hmm.
can you.
Amazing. What an amazing story. Thank you. How do you balance structured education with emotional and social learning?
Yep, good question. We follow a schedule of sorts in terms of implementing our initiatives to
Hmm.
our children, youth, and women. And in that schedule, what we're able to do is
Hmm.
strike that balance of, the technical skills, the education that the children, the youth need to receive, alongside focusing on their nutrition, their mental health, and their physical health.
Hmm.
So because we're able to, balance needs over the limited time that we get with our
Hmm.
children, um, we're able to plan accordingly. So structure is one way, having a structured schedule, a timetable is one way of doing it.
Hmm.
But more than that, I think we always put the child's well-being needs first, right? So
Hmm.
if we are hearing or seeing that a child is not doing well for any
Hmm.
reason, be it at school or at home, we have a team of counselors that work with us, and we immediately map that child to a counselor
Hmm.
uh, for therapy sessions. We bring in the parents, the grandparents, any key stakeholders in that child's immediate environment.
Hmm.
Um, to access that opportunity as well.
Very good.
Because again, it comes down to that ethos of meeting your basic human
Yeah.
needs first before anything else.
Amazing. I asked you about resilience, and my next question is, what have children taught you that no textbook could?
Yeah, two things that my kids have taught me. One is kindness.
Hmm.
Even on bad days, they show up with their hearts full of kindness, right?
Hmm.
And I work with some extremely marginalized children,
Yeah.
um, and they need not be kind, right? Because life has not been kind to them. But
Hmm.
these children show up with so much light. It is
Hmm.
so inspiring.
Hmm.
It really, makes you pause and be grateful for everything that God has blessed you with, has
Hmm.
blessed me with.
Yeah.
And I think, a sense of possibility, like we were discussing with the resilience, um, they live with so much hope,
Hmm.
right? They dream so big.
Yeah.
And I think those big dreams, those aspirations push us to do better and do more.
Hmm.
Um, because that sense of possibility is undying. And sometimes we look at them and we're like, you know what, if you want to be this, let's move mountains to see if you can be this, because why
Hmm.
not?
Hmm. What a
Yeah.
great response. Few questions now for you, Vedika. You have received several honors, including global recognition during COVID-19. How do awards change or not change your work?
um I think what awards have done for me over the last decade is bring credibility,
Hmm.
right? When people hear about my accolades or that I'm a TEDx speaker, they immediately believe that I'm doing something right,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so they want to associate with that. So I think I welcome any kind of recognition, not for any personal, self of achievement, but more so that I know that it brings credibility. And if that's what it takes to get people to believe in our vision and our mission, then so be
Hmm.
it.
Hmm. You very rightly said that, there's a lot of credibility, but along with credibility comes a lot of visibility. And therefore, my question is, what responsibility comes with visibility, especially when you are representing marginalized communities?
So I think the responsibility that comes with visibility is this constant reminder that I am not the voice of the community. I am
Hmm.
simply the amplifier of the voice
Hmm.
that is often silenced or unheard.
Hmm.
And I think that disassociation is very important because it keeps ego in check,
Hmm.
right? Um, my kids, their parents, my team, a large part of which comes from the community, they all have a voice. They all have agency.
Yeah.
It is their lived reality that I am simply representing.
Hmm.
So I am simply an amplifier.
Hmm.
And I think that is very important for people such as myself in this sector to
Hmm.
keep in mind.
Well said. Well said. I have time for two more questions for you. What values guide decision making when resources are limited and needs are overwhelming? And I'm sure you face this every day.
Yeah. This is a tough question,
Hmm.
because sometimes it's a real conundrum.
Yeah.
But when I reflect on it, I think a large part of our decisions are made through
Hmm.
a people first approach,
Hmm.
right? A program can come to a standstill
Hmm.
if that money or those resources are needed to be routed to a child or a family in need.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I believe that is the essence of depth work, right? That
Correct.
we make that last mile effort, and we truly try to help every child or
Hmm.
every family that we're in touch with.
Hmm.
So I think that people first approach, prioritizing the needs of our people over the needs of our program or our external stakeholders, really drives that decision making
Hmm.
in terms of what we need to be doing
Hmm.
now and next.
Hmm. Amazing. And my last question for you, Vedika. If policymakers truly listen to organizations like Yein Udaan, what would
Yeah.
change first?
I want to be very ambitious
Yeah.
in saying, um, I really think, there is potential to reverse the generational cycles of trauma
Hmm.
that um, sometimes govern the quality of our children's
Hmm.
lives.
Hmm.
And I feel like with mobilizing and destigmatizing mental health efforts,
Hmm.
bringing back family values into conversations,
Hmm.
giving that agency, um, to parents and families and caregivers, I really feel that children of this generation and the coming generations can be encouraged, can be enabled to break out of their,
Hmm.
cycles of generational trauma and live um, at a higher frequency, at a better quality of life.
Hmm. And on that note, I just hope you are able to really get whatever you're dreaming for. But thank you, Vedika, for speaking to me about Yein Udaan. Talking to you, I could sense the incredible amount of passion you have to be able to do so much good that you are already doing for children, youth, and women. And congratulations for the great work you're doing. Thank you for the work that you are doing to support such a large number of urban communities who really will benefit immensely from the support that you and Yen Udaan are giving them. Thank you for speaking
Thank
to me and good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.